traveling by Greyhound bus across America with his wife Florette. With him he carried 2 albums of photographs that Florette had been repairing to while away the journey. In a chance encounter with a photographic agent at the end of the trip, these family snaps he'd taken as a child were uncovered. For Lartigue, this changed everything. Within a year, he had his first solo exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. They captivated the world, and he was hailed a genius of 20th century photography.
I can't think of another photographer that actually produced work like that.
His genius was to see the light side of life, to see the positive aspects of people.
His images just define beauty. You know, it's like seeing someone walk down the street who's utterly beautiful and you just can't take your eyes from them.
Lartigue's photographs were a world away from 1960s New York, where he was discovered. He grew up in Belle Epoque, France, at the time of Claude Monet and Marcel Proust, when Paris was a global centre for painting, cinema and photography. It was the Manhattan of its age, and it was at this golden moment in France's history that Lartigue took some of his most memorable images.
Pour la France, c'est l'apogée, la Belle Époque, puisqu'on considère, vous savez, avec la conscience française quand même, les champions des grandes courses automobiles se passent en France, les débuts de l'aviation se passent en France, les femmes sont magnifiques, la ville de Paris est magnifique. Quand vous voyez ça, vous vous dites que vraiment c'est là où il faut vivre.
In 1894, at the dawn of this glittering era, Lartigue was born into one of France's wealthiest families. His father, Henri Lartigue, was an engineer and had amassed the 8th largest fortune in the country, building railways in the colonies. Although Jacques lived through one of the most glamorous periods in Western history, for much of his childhood he felt excluded. Puny, with a feeble constitution, Jacques spent long periods of his young life bedridden. Often relegated to the role of observer in an extrovert and adventurous family, he was anxious, sometimes tortured by the passing of time, of images, colours, smells and thoughts. It was this desperation to be involved, to find ways to capture the passing moments, that sowed the seeds of a lifetime's passion.
Robert, Sissou and Louis won't let me play in their games. I feel so small and lonely. I want to cry. All of a sudden, I had a remarkable idea, an invention out of a fairy tale. I spin 3 times, open my eyes, close them, open them very, very wide, and hop! Have captured the image. Like a camera, I catch the picture with everything in it. The colors, the real size. What I keep in my mind is something alive, and it moves and smells.
This game was just a child's fantasy, but fortunately for Jacques, his father had a passion that could make it a reality: photography. He'd photographed almost every family occasion since before Jacques was born, and was delighted when at the age of 8, Jacques asked for his first camera. Lartigue's earliest photographs were taken with the most laborious and cumbersome of cameras. In fact, his first one would have been similar to this, which was taller and heavier than he was. Lartigue began by taking static family portraits. From the start, the 8-year-old amateur religiously applied himself to mastering his new hobby. Focusing was laborious, and he'd pace out the distances obsessively until he could guess them by instinct. He also had to expose his plates for just the right time. Too much or too little, and his precious image would be lost forever. Despite all the technical difficulties, to the modern eye, his photographs still appear spontaneous and effortless.
He would go out and force the camera to see the world in the way that he saw it and fix images which are extraordinary. They're beautiful images because they're the way in which a child sees the world. They've got that hunger in the eye that a child has.
As technology improved and films got faster, Lartigue started to experiment with capturing motion.
He was obviously very interested in the fact that the camera in a way is a time machine and he can stop time. And how interesting is it if you can actually stop time while something's happening. And so you can see in a way kind of recording people jumping and running and stuff because they're the things that you can't stop. So you can almost imagine his kind of glee, I guess, looking at the prints when they're coming back.
By the age of 10, he was taking extraordinary snapshots of his eccentric and dynamic family, who were always fooling around with the latest inventions.
C'est des gens qui faisaient tout ce qu'ils avaient envie de faire et c'était une famille où ils avaient beaucoup d'imagination et d'idées. Chacun avait une idée, une invention. Ils avaient du talent pour tout ce qu'ils faisaient. Mais c'était des choses, en anglais ça s'appelle un hobby. Hein? C'est-à-dire des travaux complètement inutiles.
In these photographs, you can still feel the joy and wonder that Lartigue was feeling when he took them 100 years ago. What's remarkable is that such a young kid could produce so many extraordinary images, and I don't know anyone in the history of photography that had such a precocious talent. At the age of 11, on the steps of his Paris home, Lartigue took a photograph that still baffles experts today, his cousin Bichonnade in flight.
Technically, I think any